There are people who don't hate the present. They just can't seem to shake the shadows of what was. The heavy pull of old wounds, the echo of decisions long made, the way yesterday clings like fog that never lifts. You'll find them pausing mid-stride, eyes glazing over mid-conversation, fingers tracing invisible scars on their skin, staring at the horizon, wondering why something is gone as time feels like a chain around their ankles. They aren't broken or bitter or stuck. They just bear history differently. The psychology behind people who carry yesterday's weight today isn't about refusal or resentment. It's about endurance. It's about the quiet wrestle between release and remembrance, between moving on and honoring the marks left behind. You see, for some people, the past isn't a chapter closed. It's a load they shoulder daily. Every step forward feels like dragging ballast. Every new dawn, a reminder of sunsets that burn too hot. It's not that they don't try. It's that they remember too vividly. They hold regrets like stones polished smooth by endless turning, grief like threads woven into their every thought. They sense the ripple of what-ifs, the sting of paths not taken. Their minds are etched with deep engravings. And that kind of retention comes with a toll, inertia. Emotional weight isn't always visible. Sometimes it's fatigue disguised as hesitation. Psychologists have long explored rumination. But what we often overlook is that carrying yesterday's weight isn't the rejection of tomorrow. It's the fierce grip on lessons etched in pain. People who haul the past aren't denying growth. They're grounding it in truth, no matter how heavy. Their spirits thrive on authenticity. When they say, "I can't forget," it's not torment. It's testimony. They need the weight not because they crave suffering, but because lightness without scars feels like erasure. There's also something profoundly psychological about why yesterday lingers so tenaciously. Every memory subconsciously activates an ancient circuit in our brain, the drive for adaptation. Humans evolved to learn from peril, to etch survival into bone. And in today's rush, when fresh hurts accumulate, the body scans for patterns. Does this echo then? Will it repeat? For those more sensitive to temporal echoes, this vigilance persists. The mind keeps replaying, dissecting, fortifying. No wonder progress feels laborious. But here's the paradox. Many of these same people who carry yesterday's weight today often pioneer the deepest wisdom. They want to evolve, but not at the cost of amnesia. They want freedom, but rooted in reflection. They want joy, but not oblivious to sorrow. They want to run, but not unburdened by the map of falls. This is the solemn burden of the weight bearers, the friction between stagnation and sagacity, because it's not the past they fear. It's forgetting its gifts amid the grind. If you've ever woken with the ache of an old argument, replaying words like a scratched record, you've felt this paradox. You see others bounding into the day, unshadowed, and a quiet voice murmurs, "Maybe I could let go." But truthfully, you knew it would hollow you out, not because you lacked strength, but because you'd be adrift without the anchors of experience. You'd be smiling through voids. You'd be chasing novelty without the compass of caution. That's not living. That's evasion. Researchers in cognitive psychology describe this as high emotional memory consolidation. These individuals integrate experiences, triumphs, traumas, turning points, more profoundly than most. Daily life can intensify them. The scent of rain evoking loss, a song stirring buried fury, a face mirroring faded bonds. It's not mere nostalgia, it's neural imprinting. Their brains archive more narrative per event. To navigate, they carry. Retention then isn't always hindrance. Sometimes it's heritage. It's the soul declaring, "This shaped me. I won't discard the mold." But culture seldom comprehends that. We inhabit a society that exalts reinvention. We celebrate the fresh start, the hustle unbound, the influencers who glow up overnight. We view lingering as lag, depth as drag, and introspection as impediment. People who carry yesterday's weight often hear, "Just move on. Don't let it define you, or you're robbing your future." But what if the weight is the definition? What if their load is the forge of fortitude? There's a deeper psychological thread too, the bond between identity and historical narrative. Many weight bearers spent formative years in crucibles of chaos, betrayals that scarred, failures that felled, loves that lacerated. Gradually, the psyche links self to story. Being present equals betraying the prologue. The unconscious recalls rupture like muscle memory. So when opportunity knocks, their spirit doesn't just sense potential. It senses peril of repetition. It's not clinging to yesterday. It's caution against its rerun. Yet, the most compelling aspect of these people is their latent luminosity. When they choose to share the load, it's enlightening. They perceive subtleties others bypass. Their insight pierces, but so does their vigilance against vulnerability. It's as if they bear a lantern forged in fire, brighter for the blaze, but heavier too. Every forward motion demands reckoning, and they calibrate that reckoning keenly. But this doesn't consign them to perpetual drag. Indeed, many who carry yesterday flourish in deliberate strides. They excel in vocations of meaning, counseling, art, advocacy, where history informs healing. Studies reveal that ruminative types often master long arc pursuits because they invest with informed intent. They may not sprint every race, but when they commit, it's profound. Still, we must acknowledge the isolation that can accrue with this carriage. Bearing weight may preserve integrity, but it can also partition from possibility. We are creatures of continuity. Even the most archival hearts yearn for bridges to unbeaten paths. The quest is discovering terrains that honor the haul without halting it. For some, that means mindful marches, therapeutic unpacks, communal circles that validate the vestiges. It's not about shedding the sack. It's about sharing its stories. Lately, therapists have named this chronological encumbrance, the psychic toll of unresolved timelines. You might sense it after a trigger flares or following nights of nocturnal narratives. That subtle sag in the shoulders, as if timelines tangle too tight. For profoundly mnemonic souls, encumbrance compounds quicker. It's not cataclysmic. It's cumulative. A laugh rings false. A plan feels fraught. And abruptly, you just crave pause. Not from despair, but to recalibrate the rucksack. Those who carry yesterday's weight craft cunning countermeasures. They might ritualize routes, morning journals to journal the journey, evening echoes to exhume without explosion. They might detour through nature, not to flee, but to frame the freight in vastness. They might consult clocks less, not from disinterest, but to dwell in durations. These subtle shifts are stewardship, methods of modulating the mass of memory. And here's a hushed truth. Carriage isn't invariably curse. At times, it's covenant. Discernment of depths, reverence for residues, fidelity to formation. That's psychological prowess at play. The issue isn't the haul. It's the self-scorn for heaving it. We're schooled that lightness equals liberation. But what if weighted wisdom is the truer triumph? Equilibrium endures, though, for utter isolation. Cozy at onset, curdles into atrophy. The psyche requires resonance. Souls who echo our epics without erasure. Maturation unfolds in mirrored memoirs, even if those memoirs murmur softly. Thus, the true pursuit for weight bearers isn't to jettison the journey. It's to journey with judicious lightning. Commence modestly. A confession to a confidant. A creative outlet for the cargo. A cohort attuned to antiquity. Progression needn't signify purge or pandemonium. It can signify partnership. It can mean a hand extended, a history honored, hallowed presence. What bearers of yesterday truly pursue isn't unyoking. It's unveiling. They aren't shackled by shadows. They're sculpted by them, seeking spaces sacred enough to stride forth. And occasionally, they merely require recognition, to not construe their caution as coldness, to grasp that when they hesitate, it's not the now I doubt. It's distillation. They're not negating novelty. They're affirming nuance. It's a subdued sort of sovereignty, the sort unlauded, yet laudable. for it demands daring to defy the dictate of discard, to venerate your visceral volume in an epic enamored with erasure. The psychology of those who carry yesterday's weight today isn't a chronicle of captivity. It's a chronicle of custodial care. Every echo has essence, and they've mastered metering it where it molds most. Sometimes the sternest strain for those who bear yesterday isn't the bend of the back. It's abiding the imprint, the remorse that resonates, the muted musing if they've marred momentum, if they've marooned meaning unwittingly. They rehearse the reluctance in reverie, rationalizing it. I just needed to note it. I was anchored. Perhaps presently I'll proceed. But inwardly, they sense this transcends a single stasis. It's a cadence their continuum compels. Memory mounts and mindfulness mediates. What multitudes miss is that bearing blooms not in bloom. It burgeons in backstory. Perhaps it commenced when a youth internalized a slight as scripture. Perhaps they were the sentinel in a stormy lineage, or the scribe in a squad of sprinters. They discerned that digesting was durabler than discarding, that delving was doable over dashing. Gradually, that gravity grew genesis. They didn't cease evolving. They just etched eternally. Cognitively, this engenders what scholars term mnemonic mooring, the propensity to tether tomorrow to testament to temper tumult. It's not aversion to advance. It's asylum and ancestry. But here's the luminous verity. Bearers of yesterday often harbor prodigious, interior panoramas. Their persistence propagates profundity, perspicacity, and perseverance in untrammeled tempo. They are the cartographers, the chroniclers, custodians, the steadfast sentinels, sustaining symmetry in a spasmodic sphere. Their ballast isn't barren. It's the bedrock where profundity proliferates. But if they linger overly in that locus can congeal into confinement, rot from retrospection, recrimination, and spectral slights. Cognition dubs this the retention reel. The more one rehearses a residue, the more resolute that residue renders. Each evocation affords easement momentarily, yet buttresses the bond betwixt bygone and burden. It's akin to clasping a chronicle to cloak the clamor, yet ere long the ink indelibly inks, shattering that real demands not coercive catharsis. It's recontextualizing its connotation, rather than reckoning relics as restraints. They might morph into mentors in measured motion, modest milestones to mobilize sans mutilation. One of the most misapprehended attributes of those who convey chronology is their heightened historical acuity. They register the minutiae of moments, the flutter in the frame preceding a flashback, the constriction in the core before a chronicle cascades, the thrum in the thorax when reminiscence rears. That acuity, if unharnessed, recoils into retrospection, but cultivated, it converts to chronological command. The crux isn't to cauterize acuity, it's to calibrate it. Anchoring arts and measured meditations, tactile talismans, soothing sutras remind the reason I am intact, because much of yesterday's yoke isn't the yesteryear. It's the form recollecting epics it endured and embraced. And yet, the paradox persists. Numerous who convey yesterday's weight are among the most magnanimous minds you'll meet. They mourn mightily. They memorialize milestones. They minister mutely. They manifest mercy in manners that missed unnoticed. They merely grapple with the grandeur of the gone, the facet that mandates magnification. For them, legacy isn't lavish. It's the latent letter unearthed at leisure. The lingering look, the manner they metabolize sans monopolizing. Their continuum isn't carved in the cascade. It's carved in the cloistered chapters none else chronicles. There's an evolutionary cognition facet here too. Not all are architected for absolute amnesia. In primordial packs, poise was paramount. Some scouted, some sustained, some scrutinized. The scrutinizers who sequestered sagas often obviated oversights, divine discord, discerned drifts others disregarded. Their retention was resilience. Contemporarily, that tenacity transmutes variably. It might manifest as intuiting an ally's ancient ache or perusing the pallor of a poised pretense too piercingly. When every epoch engulfs concurrently, the mind meanders to memory as bulwark. The now epoch innervates that. It elevates ephemera. If you're not manifesting, memeing, or manifesting momentum, it seems you're marooned. But verily, conveying yesterday's weight isn't waning. It's withstand against whimsical wipe. It's the essence's edict. I repudiate relinquishing my renderings merely to render relevant. Still, safeguarding and surging must synthesize, because excessive safeguarding stagnates and undue delving dulls. The aim isn't to antagonize the affinity for archives. It's to unearth emergence that doesn't eviscerate it. In counsel, a notion termed graduated grieving obtains. It signifies incremental, ingestible increments toward the trepid, not to annihilate adherence, but to amplify amplitude. For one, conveying chronology. That might mean memorializing a minute, then mobilizing mercy-free. It might mean mapping the mass on parchment prior to proclaiming it. The purport isn't to propel proliferation. It's to persuade the psyche that procession doesn't invariably portend peril. Gradually, the form fathoms a fresh fable. I can convey and yet cascade. But let's plumb profounder. Why does mere persistence in the present palpate so ponderously at intervals? Because diurnal dynamics delineate us starkly. Every exchange elucidates an essence of our encumbered ego. When kin kindle carefree, we feel fissured. When cohorts commune in current currents, we feel frequency forsaken. That discordance evokes our intrinsic interval, the interstice, twixt the self we sustain and the self we secrete. The more monolithic the mind, the more monumental that interstice manifests in milieux molded on momentary mirth. Thus the conveyance, in manifold manners, is a renunciation of rupture. It's a vowing I shan't splinter solely to sink. That's not derangement. That's durability. But durability can desolate, because the cosmos oft misconstrues mass for malaise. Those who convey yesterday's weight aren't eternally eclipsed. They're elsewhere, equilibrating their encumbrance, pondering piercingly on particulars none necessitated their perusal. They're recirculating ruptures, refining resonances, querying if they quartered quests or quartered quietly. They inhabit the afterimage of antiquity. Long post the pulse passes, their musings mull still, sifting, synthesizing, sanctifying, scrutinizing. That's the tariff of tenacity. Yet therein resides radiance. Because when they deign to divest, it's divine. Their disclosures dawn like dawn. Their discernment dazzles devout. You needn't negotiate their notice. When they're with you, they're holy. They don't dart diversions. They delve durations. They're not pursuing plaudits. They're pursuing profundity. For myriad, mending mounts with reconceptualizing the carriage, not as captivity, but as crucible. You can cherish chronicles and yet hanker for horizons. You can clasp the cargo without cloistering. Concord isn't conjured in ceaseless celerity. It's conjured in cognizing when to clutch and when to consign. When you commence to contemplate your continuum sans censure, conveyance becomes cognizance. You initiate to select, not from fright, but from fidelity. The cosmos craves not universal urgency. It craves conservators. It craves the who weigh the whisper of your air and he utters it. It craves the who utter less yet underpin more. Yesterday's weight, when wisdomed, can mature into weighted wisdom. The proficiency to persist profoundly, not prolifically, because profundity, not precipitancy. Precipitate's veritable vital connection. And perchance that's the veiled verity underscoring this entirety. Those who convey yesterday's weight today aren't repudiating the realm. They're yearning for a rendition resonant with residue. A realm where they needn't negate their narrative into negligible nuggets merely to Nestle. A realm where retrospection isn't redundant. Where reminiscence supplants rushed rhetoric. Where weight is warranted to waft. Until they unearth that realm, they erect it in their endurance. And at times that's the most meticulous mode of momentum. Because one dawn when they deign to divest the dragon dance, they'll do it distinctly. They'll no longer labor to lighten the load. They'll simply search seasoned, steadfast, sublime, and the who witness will intuit it. That persistence unbeseeching prominence, that poise unpropitiating acclaim. That's the potency of those who erstwhile encumbered, they emerge enriched. And perchance that's the precept for us all. Vitality doesn't dawn in the dash. It dawns in the delve, in discerning yourself densely enough to dawn as one durable. When you comprehend your own carriage, you finally harbor heft worth hauling. When you hallow your own hall, you finally forge foray to enfold others. Those who convey yesterday's weight today aren't fractured. They're forging the sort of solidity that renders veritable voyage viable. And when they finally voyage, it's not vanity, it's veracity.